about this surah, and he says to them, when it says تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر, these angels descend. Where do they descend with this amr? The companion said, we don't know. The Holy Prophet says that they come to me. They come to the Holy Prophet. The angels descend upon the Holy Prophet. Then after knowing that, then he says, okay, after me, what happens? They said, we don't know. The Holy Prophet says, they go and they descend upon Ali ibn Abi Talib, salamullah alayhi. And one by one, the Holy Prophet explains and mentions who it is, or who the next wali is that these angels descend upon on the night of Qadr. So when you start looking into the meanings of Surah Al-Qadr, you realize that this surah contains the secrets of this universe and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the wilayah of the Ahlul Bayt governs this universe. Again, connecting this and seeing the importance of the tawassul to the Ahlul Bayt. Laylatul Qadr is a special night that the angels descend, but where do they descend? The Imam of our time, the Wali of Allah on earth, Khalifatullah on earth, and that makes our connection with that Khalifa. If the angels are making that connection with the Khalifa of Allah on earth on the best of nights in the month of Ramadan, we need to make that connection with the Imam of our time, inshaAllah. Addressing, going back to the topic, and I'm going to just introduce the topic and say a few words with regards to it. And the first discussion we're going to have in it, and leave the rest of it for the next session, inshallah. The Ahlul Bayt, the path to salvation. The first thing we want to do is to have a proper, or I should say a better understanding of the Ahlul Bayt. This is the first thing we want to do. The reason why I changed the wording, proper understanding of the Ahlul Bayt, and I changed that to a better understanding, is really we're not capable of understanding properly who the Ahlul Bayt are. This is not an exaggeration. It is acknowledging our deficiency and the greatness of the Ahlul Bayt. It's acknowledging that. But we want to have a better understanding of the Ahlul Bayt, and we want to have a better and better. We need to constantly increase in that. I'll mention this, and it's related to the topic. They say, Allama Tabatabai, may Allah bless his soul, one of the great ulama that we've had, one of the greatest, I should say, that we've had in many ways. People who know him or who knew him and were close to him, they've quoted this. I've heard many of our ulama quoting him on this. Any time he visited any of the imams, he would make sure he recites ziyarah, Jami'a Kabira. I don't know if you've read this ziyarah or not. It's a pretty lengthy ziyarah. Alright. Every time he went, he recited that. There's reason behind this. First of all, the recommendation of the Ahlul Bayt, but I'm trying to get to the recommendation of the Ahlul Bayt and explain or mention this example as a model for us. When we go for a ziyarah, or even when we don't physically go, we can sometimes face a direction and make the intention of the ziyarah of an imam and recite this ziyarah. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually very recommended. So sometimes you want to do this ziyarah even if you're at home. You don't have the funds to go for the ziyarah, or you don't have the timings because of work, because of school, because of various obligations. It's difficult. Well, at least you can do it from home. The reason why you have this recommendation that someone like Allama Tabatabai is constantly repeating this is not because you just have to repeat these words and there's some benefit in just repeating those words. It's because the depth that is contained within this ziyarah is such that the more you read it, the more you're able to get to the depths of it, and there's no end really to it. Okay. It continues. The second or third time you read it, the fourth or fifth time you read it, the 1000th time you're reading it, you're going to get points from it. You're going to understand things about it that you didn't previously understand. And this is going back to the point that I mentioned. We have deficiencies in understanding who the Ahlul Bayt are. And little by little, when we read that, we gain more understanding. Having a better understanding of the Ahlul Bayt, brothers and sisters, this is key. It's very important. Especially as followers of the Ahlul Bayt. What we want to do is we want to go over some of the authentic sources to understand a bit better who the Ahlul Bayt are. Let me raise a few questions so that we realize the importance of studying who the Ahlul Bayt are, especially as Shia. We need to raise serious questions with regards to our belief and our understanding of Imamah, of the Ahlul Bayt. We have certain beliefs that we've been raised with. Okay, where they came from, we don't necessarily know. We don't really know why we believe exactly in what we believe in, or what exactly it is that we believe in. For example, the concept of imamah, what does that exactly mean? What is imamah? What is the definition of an imam? There are various views amongst Shia, ulama even. Various views with regards to who an imam is amongst Shia ulama in the past and today. These differences are based on their understanding of hadith and Quran and so on. If we go beyond that, we look at Muslims, we see various views, various understandings with regards to the Ahlul Bayt. Most of Ahlul Sunnah view the Ahlul Bayt as very pious descendants of the Holy Prophet. Great people, but that's it, they're great people. They are great people, ordinary people, but just a bit more pious than everybody else. And they are descendants of the Holy Prophet. They have knowledge from the Holy Prophet. It's been handed down to them. That's their understanding of the Ahlul. Most of the Ahlul Sunnah have this type of understanding. It's limited to that. The bare minimum understanding that you need to have in order to be considered theologically to be a Shia, you would need to believe that not only are they pious descendants of the Holy Prophet, but they are muftaradut ta'ah. Muftaradut ta'ah. It is an obligation for us to obey them. Follow them. Whatever they say is an obligation on us. Whatever they say. Muftaradut ta'ah. With regards to my personal life, with regards to my social political life, family life, anything, whatever they tell me, if it's not in the Quran, still they have that wilayah. They tell me to do something, I need to do it. It's an obligation on me. This is the bare minimum to be considered theologically Shia. If you don't have that belief, if you don't have that understanding, you're not going to be theologically considered Shia. You may have love of the Ahlul Bayt like plenty of Ahlul Sunnah have. Most of them in fact have, except for this poisonous, ridiculous Wahhabi influence from the ruthless, bloodthirsty, Zionist supporting Saudis that we're seeing all the atrocities they're committing these days. Which reminds me to pray for the people of Yemen. Inshallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this month of Ramadan to relieve the people of Yemen from these atrocities, inshallah. And the people of Syria and the people of Iraq, all this Daesh, ISIS, ISIL, IS, whatever, is all supported by the same people and funded by the same people. Of course, their masters are right here, but the people who are funding it are the Saudis. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to relieve all these people from the oppressions they're facing, inshallah. Recite a salawat. The majority of Sunnis have love of the Ahlul Bayt, and this is the barakah of the Ahlul Bayt. This is the barakah of the Ahlul Bayt. Despite all of the poisonous, venomous disrespect in the sab of Amirul Mu'mineen and the Ahlul Bayt during the time of the Umayyads, during the time of the Abbasids, still the name that glows is the name of the Ahlul Bayt today. Amongst Ahlul Sunnah, most Ahlul Sunnah throughout time have had love for the Ahlul Bayt, but they didn't consider their obedience to be an obligation. They didn't consider, and they don't consider it, that whatever they say you need to obey. If you want to be Shia, that's the bare minimum. Theologically, Shia. But Shias have very differing opinions and understandings with regards to who the Ahlul Bayt are. Are they just simply pious people that God for some unknown reason has said whatever they say you respect and you follow? That's it? Just a pious, just like you and I. Alright, just a little more pious, that's it. In other words, they don't commit sin. You see a human being, a regular, ordinary human being, just like you and I, nothing special about them. They've just, for some odd reason, been able to be a little more careful and cautious in their behavior. And then God, for some, again, maybe because they've been able to implement His will or His teachings better than us, God says, okay, you listen to them. But they're just ordinary human beings. In fact, they can make plenty of mistakes. This is one view that has existed amongst Shia ulama even. Ordinary people have had this view, ulama have had this view. Not only have they had this view, but they have said, if you believe otherwise, if you believe that the Ahlul Bayt, their souls are so above and beyond that they not only not make mistakes in delivering the Islamic message, God's message to us, but they don't even make mistakes in their ordinary lives. Some of the ulama have said, if you have this type of belief, you are going to be considered a ghali, an exaggerator. This is an exaggeration, they have said, with regards to the Ahlul Bayt. No, they're just ordinary pious human beings that God has given special blessings to, but they're ordinary human beings. Then you have people that believe the Ahlul Bayt are the link between the divine in all creation. They believe that the Ahlul Bayt, which includes the Holy Prophet, by the way, sometimes people don't get this. They think when we're talking about the Ahlul Bayt, we're talking about Amirul Mu'mineen onwards. Ahlul Bayt is Ahlul Baytin Nubuwwah. Okay, and that Baytun Nubuwwah, that household of prophethood, the pillar of that is the Prophet. The Ahlul Bayt are the link between God and all creation. Okay. This is another view that exists amongst Shia ulama. In Ziyara Jami'a Kabira, when you look at it, you seem to find words that indicate that type of understanding. And then you have people that go beyond that even, and they say that the Ahlul Bayt have this special relationship with God, that they are so above and beyond, that they are independently in control of our lives and creation and so on and so forth. And they started to, of course, usually this type of ideology moves a little further from the religion, such that people who have this view end up not practicing Islam, end up not believing in the importance of practice. There seems to be a very correlation, very tight bond between this type of belief in any human being and divinity within that human being, and the idea that you don't need to practice. If you look at Christianity, you see that. When Christians believe that Christ is God or the Son of God, you see that practice isn't really too important. Okay. The way you behave isn't really too important. What's important is that belief. You believe that Jesus is your Savior, then you're saved. If you don't have that belief, then you're not saved. The important thing is that belief. Practice, your conduct, the way you behave is not really important. People who develop this last view that I mentioned, which is that the Ahlul Bayt independently govern this universe, they have traditionally moved away from the practices within Islam, and they have taught their followers, people who've come up with this ideology, taught their followers that they really don't need to practice. What they need to do is have this faith. One example is just one of the examples that we have. We have a number of them during the time of the Ahlul Bayt. One of them is, for example, Abu al-Khattab. But the one that I want to mention is Abu al-Adhaqir al-Shalmaghani. At the time of the occultation, the minor occultation, this man was at a time a representative of the third deputy of the Imam of our time. But eventually, he started teaching people ghulu, and exaggerated what according to this particular instance, the Imam of our time and that deputy of the Imam, Hussein ibn Ruh, announced that this man is a ghali and he's kafir and it's not acceptable. When you look at that, I don't want to get into it too much, but you see that, again, they developed that type of teaching. They developed that type of belief. So you have all these people consider themselves Shia, and they say if you have anything below this or above this, then you're not Shia. What is a correct understanding of the Ahlul Bayt? How do we get to that understanding? Inshallah, we're going to be covering over the next few nights. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the rights of the Ahlul Bayt, by the rights of the Holy Quran, by the rights of the Imam of our time, that He blesses us in this blessed month with the best of the blessings, that He has blessed the best of His servants, inshaAllah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the return of our Imam. We ask Him to help us become the true companions and soldiers of the Imam of our time. We ask Allah to prolong the life of and give good health to all those helping the cause of Islam, all those who are protecting Islam with their lives, especially the Maraja and especially our leader. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to relieve all believers that are facing tribulations, difficulties, hardships, suffering, especially those who are suffering in Yemen, in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Bahrain, and anywhere else. In Pakistan, people are getting killed, in Afghanistan as well. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to relieve all these believers and grant victory to those believers who are fighting the enemies of Islam, inshaAllah. Bin Nabiya wa alih, rahimallah man qara al-Fatihata ma'a as-salawat.